Hello and welcome to the video for today. In this video, we are going to see how what the effect of an income increase will be on demand. So in your principles of microeconomics course or introduction to microeconomics course, you were probably told, right, that the only thing that can cause a movement along the demand curve, right, movement from, say, point A to point B, is a change in the price of its own good. So the price of the good in this market, so the price of X, that's the only thing that can cause a movement along. Now, everything else causes a shift. So you know that if we're looking at an increase in income, then we're definitely going to be looking at a shift of the demand curve. What we're going to be doing in this video is diving a little deeper into understanding why there is a shift in the demand curve, and we're going to see it through the consumer's optimal consumption choice, as we saw with the other videos where we derived demand and so on. So the curve and the graph. All right, so let's start things off with some notes here. Remember, I write things out as I see them so you can hear it, see it, and also write it down. Activate your learning, right? Engage that brain. Okay, so we see here that increasing income while holding tastes and prices constant causes a shift. Right, we know this is not a movement along because the price of this good did not change. Causes a shift of the demand curve. So what we're going to do, like I said earlier, is show how this is true using our understanding of that consumption bundle, optimal consumption bundle chosen by the consumer. So let us suppose that we're still working with the utility function from the previous videos where utility is equal to qx to the power of 0.5, qy to the power of 0.5 is the same thing as the square root of qx, qy. Okay, working with this version. Nice to take the derivative of. Okay. We also have that the price of good X is equal to 5, price of good Y is equal to 2. These are going to stay the same. Right? The only thing that's changing in this case is income. Originally, income was $100. Now, income is 200. Income increases. In fact, it doubles. Now, from our previous videos, we saw that, pardon the blinking noises there. From our previous videos, we saw that with this utility function, and for any given I is equal to the price budget line or budget constraints, where income is equal to the price of good X times Q of good X plus price of good Y times Q of good Y. We saw that our optimal demand function for good X, I'm just going to call this star, was income divided by 2P of X, and for good Y was income divided by 2P of Y. Right, go back through to the video on demand equation derivation. This is from there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is see how this information, this increase in income, will affect our optimal bundle and thus the consumer's optimal bundle and thus their demand curve. So we have here. Actually, I want this on a new page because I want to draw. This should be fine. So let's draw our consumption choices. New page. Thanks for hanging in there with me. All right, so this is the plot area for the consumer's optimal bundle choice. That was QX is on the denominator, on the horizontal axis, and Y is on the vertical axis. So here, remember, we have that income originally is 100, P of X is 5, P of Y is 2. So we can draw a budget line with this. So what we want to do is find those intercepts, as in the amount that the quantity that the consumer will buy of one good if they're not buying the other. So if this consumer buys 0 of good X, how many can she afford of good Y if her income is 100? So if her income is 100 and the price of good Y is $2, then this person can afford 50 units, right? So we can afford 50 units of good Y and 0 of good X. Now let's find the other intercept. If income is 100 and she spends all of it on good X and the price of good X is $5, then she can afford 20 units, right? 20. So now that we have our intercepts, we can connect these 2 points to draw our first budget line, right? This is budget line A. Okay. At this budget line, we are going to find the optimal point for this consumer, right? The place where her utility is maximized given, I was hoping to draw this a little better. Her utility is maximized given her budget constraints. So we're looking for an indifference curve that touches it being the budget line, once and only once, right? It's just tangents to it. So again, we're going to connect those 2 dots, and we have our here. So this is point A. At point A, this consumer's optimal choice will be what? Well, we know the equation. So we know QX star is equal to income over 2 times P of X. So if income is 100, 2 times, we're going to divide that by 2 times 5, which would be 100 divided by 10, which is 10 units. So at point A, the consumer will take 10 units of good X. We can do this for good Y as well. Income over 2 P of Y, this is equal to 100 divided by 2 times 2, right? Price of good Y is 2, 100 divided by 4, this is 25, right? And here we have 25. Okay, so in this scenario, we're trying to figure out what happens, right, with the increase in income. So income goes to 200. So we can draw this to do this entire process again, but for income of 200. I'm going to erase this as we need this space to do some calculations that we'll run into in the future. So right now, what we want to do is figure out our intercepts, right? So we can draw that budget line and then add on the new indifference curve and find the one that just touches that new budget line. So we have with the new income of 200, if this person spends all of her money on good Y, so 0 good X, how many can she afford now? Income is 200, price of good Y is 2. She can actually afford to buy 100 units of good Y. So that's double, which makes sense because her income doubled. All right. And for good X, if she's spending all of her $200 on good X and the price of good X is $5, then she can afford to buy 40 units if she spends all of her money on good X, which again makes sense because income doubled. So now that we have those 2 endpoints, we can connect them with a straight line. So we have a line to connect these 2 points here. There we go. So we see that rightward outward shift of the budget line. We'll call this BLB, budget line B, or budget constraints B. Right? So we notice that that shift of the demand curve is also happening, actually initially shifted out the consumer's demand budget line. Right? And now I want to see how this affects the optimal consumption. So we're looking for her new consumption point here. We want a line that just touches, a curve that just touches her budget line. We'll call this IC2. Now note that the indifference curves should not intersect, right? So this purple curve and the black curve should not intersect at any point. So if I kept drawing this, they should never intersect. Just as a hint on how you draw. So we'll call this point B. This is the new optimal point. We can again do that calculation for this consumer's optimal budget. So for QX star optimal consumption, this would be I income over 2 P of X, which is 200 divided by 2 times P of X is 5, which is 200 divided by 10, which in this case is 20, right? So 20, right? For Q of Y, this would be equal to 200 divided by 2 times P of Y, which in this case is 2. That's be equal to 200 divided by 4, 50, right? That also doubles. The reason why those don't match up exactly is because these 2 difference curves are not drawn exact to match exactly. But that's beside the point of our video here. What we want to focus on is good X. I want to see how this increase in income will affect the demand, right? Cause that shift of the demand curve. All right, so let's draw this down here to enter our demand space, just like we did with deriving the demand curve. We're doing this from the consumer's consumption bundle, optimal consumption bundle. So this is 10, and here we have P and Q for the demand. This is market for good X. Okay. Now we should see here, note that the price of X didn't actually change, right? So the price of X stayed the same at $5. So we have the same price. The only way we can have these 2 points here, point A and point B, is if we have 2 separate demand curves. We'll call this D1. We'll call this D2. Right? And that shift from D1 to D2 is due to the shift of the budget line that we saw earlier. And the reason why there was that shift of the budget line is the increase in income that this consumer now has. So we can see here from this video how an increase in income causes a shift of our demand curve. And we see it through the optimization of the consumer's choice. Okay. One more thing to consider here in this video will be that income consumption curve. We'll see that actually in the next video. All right. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Okay. Enjoy economics. It's just us trying to figure out the world in graphs and equations. All right.